Hi, and welcome to How I Make a Painting, episode 6. Today I'm going to be talking about rendering, which is what you see me do now. And I started a bit last week when I rendered the fur on the cat in the front. So I won't be going into fur that much now because I already have a video about that. But basically, what I do when I render is I make a new layer on top of everything, all my base layers, and then I want to detail out the textures a bit more and try to define the shapes and just make everything more detailed, I guess, and rendered. So, what you see me do here is the Bengal brothers trying to paint out their fur using the same method that I did in the last video. Basically just going from dark to light, and that's pretty much my method for a lot of things, I feel. And you'll see me doing that a lot, trying to lay out the dark first, and that's just something that I tend to do when painting. I think that that's easier. But maybe you find it easier doing it a different way, like going from light to dark. And that's completely okay too. I think that you gotta find your way of making things as easy for yourself as possible, because sometimes artists do stuff that you feel, or that you may feel, is the right way of doing something, and I think that it's easy to get hung up on something like that. And I know that I did a lot when I was more of a beginner, but now I've kind of found my own methods of doing things, and they're not necessarily, the right way that I thought would be the right way, but they're my way. And so yeah, it's important, I think, to find your own way of doing things, because this is just the series of videos that's just the way that I do things, and I think that that's easy to keep in mind. It's not the way to do things, and it's not the only way to do things. So, I'm on to Cornelius now, and he is the most difficult part of this painting process, and I'm having such a difficult time with him because I don't really know how to render him, and I think it's one of these cases where, because he's a focal point, I'm like thinking so much while painting him and trying to, get him perfect, and that just messes everything up. But I'm just trying to draw in some fur on him right now, trying to, get him to look good. And I honestly don't think the fur looks very great at this point, so I'm just trying to layer it out, trying to go from dark to light, and when I feel that it's the fur is coming on too strong, I go onto the layers and I just pull down the opacity on the layers a little bit, and that kind of makes it a bit smoother, a bit less harsh, and that's what kind of saved his fur in this case, because I didn't really like it when it was way too strong. So you'll see me do that a lot, actually, in my painting process, painting something and then pulling down the opacity, and then I keep painting, and I think that's just my inner insecurities about painting. And I don't know, it does give it it does give it a bit of a layered effect, where it looks sort of like you've added a lot of transparent layers, or like sort of translucent paint layers, and you can get that sort of effect on a traditional oil painting too, if you just keep painting a little bit translucent. And I do kind of like that, and that's sort of what I'm going for in this illustration too, so it's not really a problem. And at this point I do like his fur. I did sort of change the direction of it a little bit and just make it a little bit more curly, and I do like that. And here you see me going in with the brightest bright in his fur and just being really careful about it, lowering the opacity a little bit, and I just keep noodling along. yeah, here you see me just pull down the opacity, try to fix some edges here and there, and sometimes I go in with the eraser instead, also on a low opacity, to try to, you know, get certain parts more translucent, more light. And I do save the strings of the ukulele for like late into the process because I don't want to paint anything over them, basically. And you saw me just turn the canvas, and if you hold down shift and you paint at the same time, you'll get straight lines, vertical or horizontal. So you have to sort of turn the canvas if you want to have them more diagonal. And here you can see me just defining some shapes, and you get those reflections in those, what should I call them, those metal things on the bag. English is not my first language. And you just see me defining things and polishing things, basically. And I think it's very, very important in this stage to know when to quit, because you can keep doing this for so long, and I think it's important to remember that the more detail your illustration has, like the more render it has, it doesn't make it better. And that's something that I thought when I was younger, and I remember I had this goal of, when I was painting another piece at the time, I had this goal to fill basically all the pixels. They all had to be a different color. That sounds ridiculous, and it was a ridiculous goal. And my final product, I wanted that to make it as realistic and as detailed and as good as possible, because that was my definition back then of a good painting. I thought that was what was gonna make it good, but it was a really ugly painting, if I can say so myself. It's actually good to detail out your important parts of your piece and then leave pieces, like other parts of your piece, less detailed, because if you detail everything, and I may have said this before, if you detail everything, you're basically telling your viewer that everything in your painting is important, but if everything is important in your piece, nothing is important. So that's why it's so important to keep a strong focal piece, is to not detail everything entirely. And I do give basically most of the piece a bit of render, but you can see here when I'm detailing this old lady, I'm just hiding some of the sketches on her and defining that bag a little bit, and then she's basically done. Like, she doesn't have any fur painted, barely, and like not at all as much and as defined as Cornelius's, for instance. And I'm trying to paint the curtains a little bit more because they are so flat right now. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and if you are interested in these videos but way longer and going into way more depth and way more detail, I have a tutorial package available on Gumroad. It's called How to Create a Detailed Illustration. It's just $5, and you get multiple longer video tutorials covering each part of the illustration, and some extra content like mini text tutorials and the PDF file, so that you can pick apart my layers and learn from it. And you get all of this for $5, and it is that cheap because I want it to be accessible to everyone. At the point of me uploading this video, the tutorial isn't entirely completed yet, so that means that I have some of the content up and running on Gumroad, and some is coming later, but if you get it now, you will still get all the content to come too. So, check it out, it would help me out a lot, and I'll leave a link to that Gumroad tutorial in the description, as well as to all of my social media Instagram, Twitter, DeviantArt, and all of that. So thank you again for watching.